Hi everyone. You may have noticed I'm not my usual bubbly self today, and that's because the last video in this series got a 99.0% likes to dislikes ratio. You might be thinking, well, isn't that really good? 99% of the people liked it? No! Usually these videos get a 99.6, 99.5, at least a 99.4. 99.0? That means from the nearly 100,000 people that watched it, 1,000 of them didn't like the video. I let 1,000 people down, and I don't even know 1,000 people, so to try and get my head around that is just, I'm really sorry, and I will do better. It's the Disney sequel. Okay, let's just get into it. So today we're going to be talking about Peter Pan. Presumably you know about the animated Disney movie from 1953, but I'm especially excited for this one because not only does it have a traditional sequel, but it also has 6 Tinkerbell spin-offs. 6! And I plan to tackle all of them, regarding there's enough demand for it. Remember to smash that like button, but today I'm just going to be covering what I'm dubbing to be the most Disney sequel there is. You know, just the epitome of Disney sequels. Return to Neverland. This film isn't called Peter Pan 2. I feel like that's bad branding, but okay. That was like a reference within a reference. It's episode 11, guys. You still expecting me to come up with original stuff? Yes, you should be. You see, I understand one of the biggest criticisms of this series is that I don't do enough research for my videos where I'm reacting to the Disney sequel. It's literally in the name, reacting. But since I don't want to let the 1,000 people down again, I guess welcome to a new segment. Background research with Seamus. This probably won't be very fun, I'm sorry. So according to Wiki, this isn't even a straight-to-DVD sequel, which I wish I looked that up earlier considering this series is literally me reacting to Disney straight-to-DVD sequels. Does this even count? I mean, apparently it was released to cinemas, grossing a total of $109,862,682. Despite the fact DVD sales had been the initially planned market for the film, so an unintentional cinematic release I'm hearing. You know what? I'm gonna count it. It's a DVD sequel by technicality, and also, quite hilariously, Walt Disney Animation Studios, the creators of the 1953 film, does not acknowledge it as canon. I don't know why I find this so funny, but there's a canon Disney Peter Pan timeline, and this isn't even included on it. Like, I bet the Tinkerbell movies are, and this isn't. I'm so excited! And also, it's worth noting that Michael Edwards, a theater goer that watched the movie, who honestly, I think he's just some random guy. Like, there's no source cited or anything, and I've searched him up. Can't find a single record of any review by a guy called Michael Edwards, but he stated flat out, this film is not worthy of being called a Disney sequel, which you might think derails my whole the epitome of the Disney sequels thing, but honestly, no, it just adds more fuel to the fire. This film does everything you want a Disney sequel to do and more. It goes above and beyond. You guys aren't ready. And also, since you're just putting random people's opinions on the wiki page, I'd appreciate if you quote me, the world's leading expert on the Disney sequels, by the way, saying, Return to Neverland is unironically better than the original. Screw that 45% Rotten Tomatoes score. This film was beautiful. And yeah, I'm actually being genuine here, but if you're starting to worry that maybe I'm getting a bit desensitized to the Disney sequels, don't. This was no Cinderella free. It wasn't good. It's just unpopular opinion, but Peter Pan doesn't hold up. Which, just to be clear before you ruin my over 99% likes to dislikes ratio, I'm not saying Peter Pan was a bad film. For its time, it was exquisite, a fun concept. The animation was still revolutionary. I remember as a kid I had, and well, still have the VHS tape for it, but unlike so many animation films that can be inclusively enjoyed by all ages, this film was for kids. And only for kids. It's got that kind of cheesy, cartoonish style to it. The whole concept revolves around children never wanting to grow up with pirates. This is exactly the kind of thing 6-year-old Seamus would have loved. Only thing is, I'm no longer 6 years old, and watching this as an adult, the dialogue and animation feel aged, and I don't know, I found it a bit tedious, to be honest with you. Also, I can't not address the fact that some of the scenes in this film aged like a glass of milk, where you put it in the fridge on a warm spring day and then forget about it until the end of summer, and have a little sip to see if it's okay, and find out, no, it's not okay. It's not okay to do that. And I'm sorry, I know this is probably my greatest flaw and just an awful take, but I don't really like old movies. So the fact the sequel came out in 2002, that's a big plus. A Switzerland flag-sized plus. Animation movies came forward a long way in those 50 years. And while yes, if we're just viewing it as a follow-up to the original, it's not a very good sequel. How do I describe it? It's Little Mermaid 2. Remember the Little Mermaid 2 where they kind of just took the first film and thought, we can remake that, but call it a sequel because this time it's going to revolve around the main character's daughter. Yeah, they do exactly that. You've got a grown-up Wendy and her 2 kids, the elder daughter Jane being the main character who ends up going to Neverland in the film. They even got a dog in place of Nana, who they very creatively named Nana 2. I wish I was joking.
What is it, Nana 2?
The crocodile from the first film has just been replaced with a massive octopus, and Wendy hasn't even moved house, weirdly enough. Like, I guess maybe it isn't that weird for extremely wealthy parents to leave their kids a house, but I don't know, it just felt like they didn't want to experiment at all. Like, they were just playing it as safe as possible, and Disney still declared it not canon. I don't know why I find this so funny. And in hindsight, I probably should have clocked on to how similar this film would be to The Little Mermaid 2, considering they literally have the same title, being Return to the place the first film took place in. They're the same film! Okay, I'm gonna stop with this tangent now. You see, while this isn't the most inventive sequel concept, if you decide to just compare Peter Pan with Return to Neverland like for like, just as movies, I think this one's the stronger one. Because firstly, one of my complaints about the first one was that it was too targeted towards children to be enjoyed as an adult, and yet they definitely upped the ante on this one. It was downright dark at some points. The story takes place during World War II. Remember that thing that happened about 75 years ago where lots of people died? Probably the worst thing to ever happen in human existence. This film takes place during that. So Wendy's husband literally gets conscripted to the army at the very start, and pretty much our first introduction to Wendy's daughter Jane is while she's out and about with Nana 2 during a literal bombing raid on London and has to rush back to the bomb shelter while Wendy doesn't know where she is and is absolutely terrified. Yes, this is the actual direction this film went. And of course, for a nice bit of historical accuracy, all the children in the big cities were getting evacuated to the countryside during the Blitz, with Jane and her brother literally getting evacuated the morning after the events of the film. Anyway, so the story really gets set into motion when Wendy asks Jane to make sure she looks after her brother while they're away, specifically requesting she tells him Peter Pan stories. Unfortunately, Jane doesn't believe in Peter Pan. I don't know why, but it's a pretty important character trait of hers. She just doesn't like Peter Pan. She used to believe in him, now she's too busy with the war or something. You know how it is.
I've no time for fun and games.
But for some reason, she gets really angry about this request and lashes out, shouting at her brother, telling him it's a stupid story and it's not real, which... Nice, well done. What are you going to do next? Tell him Santa doesn't exist? As an elder sibling myself with experience in this field, you don't do that! I'm going to be honest, I don't like this girl, but for some reason the writers decided she's the one we need to feel sorry for in this moment, and she has this sad scene, which my slight annoyance towards Jane aside, I don't think this could have gone against the tone of the film any worse. Like, they start playing this American pop song while she's being sad for some reason, and honestly, I don't even know if I can show it to you for copyright reasons, but I feel like I kind of have to, so just please don't claim me. Like, what caught me off guard the most is that the original Peter Pan movie did have musical numbers. So initially, I thought this was just the first musical number in the film, except that Jane had this drastically different singing voice that was American and a woman, and like, it wasn't that. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't that. And if you thought things were bad enough for Jane, it's in this moment Captain Hook randomly shows up at her house with a bunch of pirates and kidnaps her. He thinks she's Wendy, because as I mentioned earlier, she's still living in the same house as the first film, and I actually kind of like the idea of them making this kind of mistake. You know, he's lost in time, doesn't really understand the idea of Wendy being grown up now, and yeah, it's a clever plot point. And then they fly past enemy planes bombing London that don't seem to take any notice of them as they go through the kaleidoscope into Neverland. Where, remember that octopus I was telling you about? Captain Hook tries to feed Jane to it, and just as Peter Pan dives in to save her, it swarms them and they both drown. Peter's hat floating to sea level, confirming to us they've all died.
I can't believe it. I'm free. Free of Peter Pan forever.
Disney sequel fake out death. Yeah, somehow this ends up with the octopus stripping Captain Hook down to his pants and just throwing him back onto his ship. I don't know. Unfortunately, Jane, unlike Wendy, wasn't really here for all of that Peter Pan business. As I mentioned earlier, she didn't believe in him, but now he was right there, so she kind of had to believe in him, but she also kind of thought she was dreaming, but they don't really follow through on that storyline. She just kind of accepts she's not dreaming off screen at some point, and therefore just leaves. She tells the Lost Boys,
No, and no.
And plans her escape. I don't know where she learns these insane survival skills she demonstrates when you consider she was presumably born and raised in London, but she builds a raft, collects coconuts and bananas, presumably enough to survive a few days, says her goodbyes to Peter, and she's on her way. Honestly, I kind of respect her a bit now. Of course, Peter does warn her.
You can't get home that way.
To which she responds,
I've got to try.
As if he hasn't lived there for years, and his knowledge on the topic probably should be considered relatively reliable. But no, she sets off anyway and her raft sinks, so she has to go back to Peter, who explains to her that the only way to leave Neverland is by flying. Except Jane can't fly. Honestly, the plot's just doing whatever they can to keep her in Neverland. Like, That's all there is to it. Like, they don't bother to explain why she can't fly, but from watching the first film just before it, one of the important instructions given to Wendy and her brothers is to think of a wonderful thought. Then add a bit of pixie dust and boom, you can fly! Whereas here, Jane is never told about that wonderful thought thing and is just given the pixie dust and goes crashing into the dirt. So everyone's kind of confused to what went wrong. Like, literally no one can work out why she can't fly. You didn't tell her to think of the wonderful thought! Meaning, once again, Jane, who I'm starting to think might have some anger problems, loses her temper with everyone, screaming and shouting at Tinkerbell that she doesn't believe in fairies, which leads to Tinkerbell starting to die. Again, I don't really get how it works, but apparently someone not believing in her means it's time to die, which I don't want to get your hopes up too much, but this opens up a real possibility for 2 fake-out deaths in one movie, and Tinkerbell was kind of a part of the first fake-out death. Like, she goes under after Peter Pan to save them, so 2 fake-out deaths on the same character? How is Michael Edwards saying this wasn't worthy of being a Disney sequel? This is as Disney sequel as it gets! Oh, and also, I didn't mention this, but Captain Hook was also kind of watching this whole flying incident happen through the bushes and sees that she can't fly, so later that night, after Jane shows off some of her more borderline insane survival skills, like, I don't want to flex, but I got the Chief Scout's Gold Award when I was 14, and I am 99% confident I wouldn't be able to do that. And he finds and starts to manipulate her, offering her a way home in exchange for stealing some treasure off Peter Pan. I wonder where I've seen that storyline before. I mean, it's identical even to the way they convinced the child doing the stealing for them with the whole, oh, well, they stole it from me first, so it's not really stealing, don't worry. Anyway, so Jane reunites with the Lost Boys with the plan of stealing the treasure for them, and they also need her to start believing in fairies so that Tinkerbell can come to life, and they start playing treasure hunt. You get it? Because that's what Captain Hook needs her to steal for him. And it's in this 3-minute treasure hunt song thing that her motivations just change entirely. She finds the treasure but doesn't blow the whistle to alert Captain Hook to where it is, instead throwing it in the water, presumably foiling his plans, right? And then Peter Pan pronounces her to be the very first lost girl, and she's super excited, like, I guess she wants to stay with them now, and just as you think the film's about to end, they're gonna go back and bring Tinkerbell to life. One of the boys somehow finds this whistle that was just thrown into knee-deep water and obviously blows it, alerting the pirates that were just waiting outside, I guess, as they all come flooding in. I don't know why they needed her to guide them to the Lost Boys' treasure when firstly it was out in the open, secondly she finds it without the Lost Boys' help, and thirdly they were literally waiting outside the entire time. And that's never explained, by the way. So Peter Pan and the Lost Boys get captured. Jane runs back to save Tinkerbell, leading into the second American pop song segment of the film. I seriously don't know why they keep doing this.
I can finally see it.
But it's too late. She finds a dead Tinkerbell. Yes! They actually did it twice! Disney sequel fake out deaths 2! We're heading into unprecedented territory right here. Like, what did I say? Better than the original! Oh yeah, sorry, I got a bit ahead of myself there. I forgot to mention, Tinkerbell comes back to life and they go off to save Peter together. Except they don't show any of the bits of them getting to the ship, you know, with them putting their differences aside and presumably Jane learning to fly. I assume that's how she got there. Like, I don't know how else you're gonna get onto that ship if you haven't flown. But then later she has this big, oh my god, she can fly moment, and it's treated like her first time by everyone, including Tinkerbell, so was that just for the cameras, or am I missing something? Surely she flew onto the ship. Yeah, it did lose me there, but Jane saves the day and they win. The octopus attacks the ship and Captain Hook in just the most cartoonish way possible as it sinks to the bottom of the ocean, and Jane realizes now she can fly, she can go home, saying goodbye to the Lost Boys and returning back to Earth, I think, only to find her brother left on a train that morning and she's been officially declared missing. You'd think, I mean, we've got to assume she was gone for well over a night considering how much happens, right? But no, apparently she was only gone for a few hours. She wakes up and tells her whole family about the adventure. And then we actually have a really nice moment where Wendy reunites with Peter Pan and Tinkerbell as an adult, which I genuinely thought was a really good scene. I really liked it. But it's short-lived because immediately afterwards, their dad comes home from the war and it's all a bit confusing because he doesn't look injured or dead enough to be coming back early. And considering one of the major plot points in the film revolves around the children being evacuated to the countryside, which we know happened in 1940, at least according to Google, 5 years before the war ended, according to Google. I'm joking, I actually knew that one. I really did. So I don't know how this has happened, and surely this doesn't change anything about them getting evacuated the next morning. To my knowledge, the war hasn't ended, but you know what? With all that said, I'm gonna give this film a 4.5. It's just the worst Little Mermaid 2, but better than Peter Pan, which I would give a 4 out of 10. And yeah, That's all I've got for you guys today. I'm sorry I did a whole video dedicated to Peter Pan 2. I wasn't actually expecting to do this, but I wanted to make full videos on the Tinkerbell movies, so you're hopefully going to get 3 more parts to this Peter Pan Tinkerbell series, if there's enough demand. Again, I won't do it if this video doesn't get 1 million likes. That's not true. Special thank you to Ali, Yuhan, Chase, Jacob, Maddie, Zach, Peter, Rachel, William, Christina, Haley, Russ, Simon, Liam, Jaden, Veronica, Catherine, another Rachel, another Jacob, Jonathan, Ben, and Amanda for supporting me on Patreon. If you want to check out my Patreon with all these wonderful rewards, make sure to check it out in the link in the description down below. My voice is gone. Like, really bad. I'm sorry about that, but thanks for watching this video. You can subscribe to my channel by clicking here. You can watch another video by clicking here. You can check out the Patreon here and in the description down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on What's Happened.